Hi, I'm Kelly,
I'm Allison.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Kristen.
and this is Fear and Wine. Hi, and welcome to Fear and Wine's first ever bonus episode. So, we are usually a podcast that recaps horror TV shows and movies, but for our bonus episodes, we want to talk about other scary stuff. So, these episodes will focus more on hauntings, scary stories from history, folklore, curses, monsters, a little true crime, and anything else that we find scary, basically. So, this first episode is a mini episode just to give you a taste of what our bonus episodes topics will be like. And this is something that I heard about a long time ago. It's always a story that's always kind of haunted me because of how crazy it was. And I could not imagine. I think the only thing I find it scary because when you find out the end, you're like, okay, this makes sense. But it's scary imagining living through this, not knowing what was going on or what caused it. And I would
Mhm.
be freaking out and feel like it was the start of the zombie apocalypse. So, what the
Uh-oh.
title of this one is St. Anthony's Fire. Have you heard of this, Leah?
No, I
Oh,
haven't. Well, I
because you
mean,
know a lot of like history, like stuff like this. So I thought for sure you would
no.
know it. Okay.
I know that I've heard of it, but as far as any details, I know nothing, and I remember you mentioning it once before and
Hmm.
really being, like, excited to hear you tell me more about it, so
Okay, well, let's hear about it. And this is wild. So this is well, I'll explain it more as we go through it. But this isn't the first instance of this, but this is one of the wilder stories, and it's the one I had first heard about, and it kind of just I don't know, just freaked me out trying to put
Mhm.
myself in these people's situation. So the story of St. Anthony's Fire. In the summer of 1951, the quaint French town of Pont Saint Esprit, near the picturesque Rhone River, endured some of the most terrifying, strange, and perplexing days in the region's history. At that time, the events of the days that followed might have been described as a curse or witchcraft. The first signs of something being amiss appeared in the animals. Madame Moulin was working in her kitchen when she heard a strange, distressing cry from her cat. The cat began howling in agony and rolling around and shaking and convulsing. It then jumped up and tried to run up the wall. And when that failed, the cat started to run into the wall at full speed, over and over, attempting to destroy itself.
Oh
I
god.
know this is gonna be there's some animal stuff that we're big
Mm.
animal lovers. It's gonna be hard to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah. Outside in her yard, she noticed that the ducks were also behaving strangely. One duck was laying on its side, and another duck was staggering around as though it were drunk, and others were running around and screaming incessantly. Within minutes, all of these animals were dead. Elsewhere in the town, Felix Misson's dog suddenly jumped into the air and he began running around in circles. Felix tried to stop him, but when he would get near the dog would growl and snap at him. The dog started to bite down on rocks and it just chewed rocks until its teeth all fell out and blood drips from his mouth. Soon after, the dog lost the use of its back legs and began running around, dragging its back legs behind him. The dog's breathing soon became labored, and the dog laid down, and within the hour, it was dead. Not long after this malady, whatever it was, it started to affect the humans. Friday evening in the Testevan family, they had dinner with some friends in town, and they shared a delicious meal of trout and fresh baked bread from the local bakery. Later that evening, Mr. Testevan woke up from his sleep feeling extremely nauseous. He immediately regretted eating the trout, assuming that he was experiencing food poisoning from the fish. He heard other members of his family up that night getting sick as well, so he figured they were all suffering from the trout. Mr. Testevan felt weak and he was shivering and his stomach hurt, but unlike the typical experience of food poisoning, he was unable to vomit. And anyone who's ever had food poisoning before knows your body wants to
Oh, yeah.
expel any and everything it can as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
The next morning, the town doctors, Dr. Gabay and Dr. Vieux, had many patients with similar symptoms. Some even had seizures and convulsions and foamed at the mouth. And the doctors were stumped. The symptoms were all over the place. Some people were vomiting, some couldn't vomit. Some had diarrhea, some did not. Many had slow pulses and dilated pupils, labored breathing, and dizziness. A day or two later, an even more bizarre symptom began with several of the townspeople had insomnia. One patient of Dr. Gabay's told him that early Sunday morning, around 3 a.m., he was wide awake with the compulsion to walk. He left his house and began walking along the Rhone River. When he reached the boulevard, he was shocked to find out that he was not the only person out that night that could not sleep.
That's awful. Can you imagine? It's bad enough when you're not feeling well, and a lot of
Mhm.
times your only reprieve is to fall asleep so that
Yes.
you can't feel, the pain, or if you've got a headache or a stomach ache or whatever. It's
Mhm.
like, let me just go to sleep and just sleep through it until I feel better. But to be up
You're sick
and
and you can't
you're
sleep.
sick and
Yeah.
you're wide awake for all of it, ugh,
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. That's why I always
brutal.
try to take when I don't feel I take any drowsy medicine, anything that will
Mhm.
help knock me out. But I
Mhm.
also thought when I was reading this story, because there's a book that I read about it that I'll reference later. I was thinking, okay, if you don't feel well and you can't sleep, maybe he just wanted to feel cool air. Because I know when I'm sick, for
True.
some reason, the bathroom floor is the most comfortable place
Oh,
for me.
yeah. Oh,
Just
yeah.
like the cold tile. It's like I just want to lay here on the tile.
Mhm, that part makes sense. But
Yeah.
it's just the thought of being not being able to sleep and being like, "No, you're gonna experience all this." Like, it
Yes.
takes a lot.
Miserable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So several groups of people were gathered in the streets that night. Then they were just talking to each other. And they were talking all about the sickness that was spreading through the town, and some people had it worse than others. But they seemed to be talking about it in a lighthearted and humorous way. And one man spoke of how hilarious it was that he had thrown up nearly 4 liters of gastric fluid the other day.
Oh
Like,
my. Oh,
yeah, it's just
no.
very weird occurrences.
Let's
Yeah.
go back to talking about the weather.
Right. The doctors noticed that many of their patients with insomnia symptoms were talking a lot more than usual and very quickly and excitedly. It seemed to border on hysteria. Come
Huh.
Sunday morning at Mass, the strange symptoms and illnesses became the talk of the town. They gossiped and exchanged stories and probably exaggerated some as well. As days went on, more and more people with any combination of these symptoms began to take over the hospital, and the two doctors were hard at work trying to solve the mystery. New symptoms continued to emerge. Charles Pommier, a 60-year-old widow, had been bedridden for many days, too weak to move, and he couldn't communicate. When suddenly he shot up from his bed, screaming and demented and foaming at the mouth, and he began yelling out of his window that his enemies were coming to get him. His eyes became wild, and he was convinced that he was being attacked by an unseen enemy. He stood at his bedroom window with a shotgun in his hand and all of his furniture piled up against his door. A young girl in town was convinced that she was actively being attacked and eaten by tigers, and her parents could do nothing to calm her down.
Oh, no. That's
Yes.
messed up.
A woman watched her husband begin to attack their bed. He was ripping up all of the sheets and the pillowcases, and then he just started punching the bed frame itself. One poor woman, this one was really upsetting. One poor woman was completely distraught because she was absolutely certain that her 3 children had been drawn and quartered and were hanging, I know, and were hanging from the rafters upstairs in her attic, waiting to be made into sausages.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's twisted.
And this is what
Are
she's just freaking out they're telling the doctors this. Like, this
so
is,
are they seeing these things? Like, they're
yes.
hallucinating these things are
Mhm.
actually happening to them?
They are believing this is actually happening. They're feeling it.
Oh,
They're seeing
no.
it. Is very real to them.
That
Yeah.
poor woman.
I
The tiger
know.
thing's also awful, but
Yeah.
that's especially bad.
There was another man who was convinced he had snakes living in his head.
Oh, no.
And then another woman, this is another sad thing with her kids. She could not stop screaming because she was so upset that her son was dead, despite the fact that the whole time her son was standing there next to her by her hospital bed.
What?
Yeah. Some people were said to have seen angels singing, and others saw bouquets of flowers growing out of their hands and feet.
I mean, that one's
Yes, and
kinda
this is
cool.
the yeah. So this is the wildest one to me. In one of the most extreme cases, a man named Joseph Ponch, an ex-aviator who was suffering from the insomnia symptoms as well as some others, but insomnia I think is the worst of what he had.
Mhm.
He stood outside on the windowsill of his second floor hospital room, and he was gesticulating wildly while his sisters were inside begging him to come back in. He then shouted, "Look at me, I'm an airplane. Do you understand? I'm an airplane and I can fly." Dr. Gabby and Joseph's sisters watched in horror. "I can fly. Don't you all believe me? Watch me." He said again, and then without warning, Joseph stretched out his arms like an airplane wings, and he jumped. He landed on the street below, shattering both of his legs.
Oof.
The doctor and his sisters ran down to him to find him covered in blood and screaming in agony. And then, incredibly, Joseph hopped up onto his broken legs and started running at full speed down the
No.
street. He
No.
ran 160 feet before he was caught and tackled by townspeople. He would have kept going.
Oh my god, like Forrest Gump. Wow.
Yeah, well,
That's
but yeah, but broken legs,
oh,
fully
that
shattered
is
legs, yeah.
wow, it's like their bodies are just going, going,
Going,
going,
yeah.
like, that's
So
wild.
some townspeople saw the whole thing and they captured him. And it took 8 men and the doctor to drag him back to the hospital. All the while he was still yelling about how he was an airplane.
I mean, they should have known to keep the windows probably locked, but
I guess it's 1951 in a small town in France. Maybe they needed the air conditioning because this is
it's true.
August.
That's true.
Might not have mentioned this did happen in the summer.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
so maybe
okay.
that's why. Yeah. So now you're probably wondering what the hell is going on in this town and how did we get here?
Mm,
The doctors worked long and hard on this, and they went through all of the symptoms and they talked to all of the sick and their families about what they had done, what they had eaten, any symptoms they had when it started, and in some cases, what some of them hadn't eaten. And after days of exhaustive research and over 280 infected patients, they had their culprit. All of this madness was caused by a fungus called Claviceps purpurea. And this
oh,
particular fungus had grown on the wheat that was processed into flour that was delivered to the local bakeries in town.
wow.
And this is France, so everybody has fresh bread every day. So that's how this is
Mhm.
spreading. So the result of ingesting this fungus caused a condition known as ergot poisoning. Have you heard of that? That's probably the more
No.
familiar.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So symptoms of ergot poisoning are nausea, vomiting, muscle pain and weakness, numbness, itching, both slow and rapid heartbeats, gangrene, vision problems, confusion, spasms, convulsions, unconsciousness, and death.
Like, literally anything.
Everything. Yes.
Wow, that is so scary.
Yes. So, ergotism has been around in Europe all throughout history. Julius Caesar lost legions of soldiers to this poisoning, and there are several ergot poisoning epidemics in France between 900 and 1300 AD that killed anywhere between 20,000 and 50,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
And it was back then that it got its name of St. Anthony's fire. The name comes from the extreme burning sensation in the limbs that it caused, and the monks of the Order of St. Anthony who had dedicated themselves to caring for the afflicted when those outbreaks would occur. And many historians believe that ergot poisoning could be blamed for the strange behaviors that caused the accusations of witchcraft that led to many burnings, hangings, and beheadings in Europe in the Dark Ages, as well as the Salem witch trials of 1692. So that's why I thought maybe you
Mm,
had heard of it.
that's
Because today
interesting,
people
yeah.
think that that's probably might have been what was going on when the girls started freaking out. I still think some of the girls were faking it, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a chance that this happened because it is just a fungus. And back then, flour and wheat was, especially in smaller towns, was maybe
Mhm.
not processed
Well,
correctly.
and that's so scary to think that an entire town could be affected all at one time, or,
Mhm.
like, a large population of a town. That's really scary.
Yeah. So that's why I think I'm like, if you're just living in this town, you've never heard of this,
Mhm.
like you had never heard of it, and then people started acting like this, I would think it was the end of the world.
Right, I mean,
Like,
because
how
now it's
because you
like
don't
we
know
think
how you're getting it.
yeah, now it's like, "Oh, what's happening to me? Let me Google it," and you can usually sort of pinpoint something,
Mhm.
some sort of answer, but, yeah, back then, it's just like nobody knew.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
Even wilder. So now when you hear all of these symptoms, you probably think, okay, these people sound like they were just crazy high and got some really good drugs. Well, there's a reason for that because the ergot fungus contains several highly poisonous and psychoactive alkaloids, including the ever popular lysergic acid or LSD.
Oh,
So
I
they
see.
all were on LSD.
I see.
LSD was synthesized from the fungus into the drug that we know today in 1938 by the chemist Albert Hofmann. So, as it turns out, what happened was earlier in that week, in the small town in France in August of 1951, local bakers Mr. Briand and Mr. Girardi received shipments of contaminated flour from a big distributor in France called Union Miennerie. I might be saying a lot of these French words wrong, so I
Okay.
apologize. Both bakers recognized right away, this is what was wild to me, recognized right away that there was something off and unusual about the flour. It had a weird color,
Oh.
it had, like I think they might have said it had, like, a weird scent, but at that time, they didn't realize how dangerous it was.
Oh, I was
And
wondering, I was gonna ask if, like, there was a way to test it or,
mhm.
know before you used it that it was bad, but
They knew it was off and something was wrong with it, and it wasn't what it was supposed to be, but they
Mhm.
didn't realize how bad it
How
would
off?
be.
Yeah.
Right, so I don't know. I like, today you would hope that people making your food, if they're like, "This seems off, let's just go ahead and serve this." Like, would
Right.
hope they don't they don't do that, but these men has a small town, they had customers that demanded their bread, they had money to
Mhm.
make,
And
and,
they
like,
probably couldn't afford to go buy a whole new
they
batch or
couldn't,
whatever, so
and they only had that one there, and like I said, it's this small town, and I guess it's where they make the bottles for Perrier water?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Is
Okay.
near this, area, so it's so kinda far out, they really only had that one distributor, so
Mhm.
if all that's coming out of there is bad bread, it's really on the distributor, but they probably should have noticed, "Wow, this looks kinda gray," or, "This doesn't smell right," or something.
Yeah,
"I
yeah.
probably shouldn't serve this." We're like, so they
Yeah, things
decided
were a lot more lax back then,
right.
you know.
I mean, it was 51, but
Right.
yeah. But I think they said that it seemed fine once they both experimented and decided, "Well, let's just bake it and see what happens," and they said it rose fine, it
Mhm.
crusted up like it's supposed to, and when they tasted it, the taste wasn't really that off, and nobody noticed it, so they thought it was
Hmm.
just fine. Whatever it was, they thought is just odd-looking flour that day.
Ugh, bread, if you ever do something like that to me,
I know. I don't want my
we're
carbs turning
I
on me.
exactly.
That's how I can take it when protein turns, dairy, I expect it. Carbs have never let me down, and I don't want them to start.
It's bad enough that they contribute to how tight my pants currently feel, but
Right. But I
leave it
am
that.
taking I'm in agreement with that. I know what I'm getting
That's
when
true. That's
yeah,
true.
that's fine. I don't want you to betray me in a way I never saw
Don't
coming.
start making me hallucinate and
Yeah.
think tigers are after me.
Yes. So in the end, they unleashed on their community this chaos and destruction, and nearly 300 people got sick, 5 died, and dozens more were
Oh,
hospitalized in
wow.
critical condition.
Do you know from your research, like,
Mhm.
what is it that ultimately kills people? Is it like they get dehydrated
Yeah,
from
it's the
losing fluids
symptoms.
or
Yeah, so I think it affects some people differently, like, there are
uh,
some people who had the insomnia worse, and they just threw up a little, but they were still, like, laughing about it, and then a
yeah,
lot of people, it was probably maybe if you had an underlying condition already, but I would likely
true.
think it's with vomiting and diarrhea and all that stuff, it was probably a lot of dehydration, a lot of
Mhm,
just and then people probably trying to kill themselves if they were hallucinating
mhm.
that bad like the animals did.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I
Yeah.
wondered what the causes of death were. That's wild to think you could get that sick and
Mhm. Probably
get
heart
better.
failure even with all those symptoms, it could be anything. Your body it
Yeah,
sounds like
true.
your body goes through a lot with
Mhm.
it. So, that was just my little mini episode of that, and if you wanna learn or read more about it, the book I, use as my reference is called The Day of St. Anthony's Fire, and it is by John G. Fuller. It is a super old book. It is kinda falling apart.
Aw,
But,
that's kinda
it
cool.
was
It
yeah, it might
adds
honestly
to
be
the
from the
intrigue.
50s, they might have written it, like, right after this right after this took place, but, it's really good, informative, they didn't really write it as a story, so I tried to kinda make it into a story, it's a lot of, like, facts
Yeah.
and what different people went through.
Do you know if there are any movies or shows that reference it?
Ooh, I don't know, I'll have to look into that
Because
because
that sounds I mean,
yeah,
it's awful because it's based, in reality, so it's, like,
mhm.
sad to think about that, of course, but it seems like it would make for a very good plot of
Yeah,
a story.
or, like, even, like, a little made for TV movie in the 50s. I will have to look into
Yeah,
it, it seems like it would be kind of a really good plot for, at least back then, like, the start of a horror film because that's what it
right.
reminds me of when you hear about all
Yeah.
that stuff, so
That would feel like you were in a horror film if that
yes.
were happening, yeah.
Yeah, if I just woke up and, you thought you were sick, and then all of a sudden you're seeing all this wild stuff happen,
Yeah, oh
and
my
I just
gosh.
feel like the fear of even with the start of COVID, the fear of not knowing yet how you get
Right.
something or actually, COVID's probably a bad example, but, like,
Well
remember when we were very young, actually, and or quite not born yet, but when the,
uh,
AIDS outbreak happened, people
mhm,
didn't understand how it was happening. Like,
mhm,
they thought they were just getting pneumonia, and then some people would die, but they didn't understand how it was being spread, and so
mhm.
people were freaking out. You could get it from the toilet seat, you can get it from coughing on someone, you could get it you know what I
From
mean? There was
kissing,
just they
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know, and so that's kind of what I imagine this town was going through is like, "Okay, well, what if this happens to me? What do I do to not get it?" But you don't know. You don't know
I
if
mean,
it's
that does kind of you mentioned COVID, and it does remind me a little bit of that because think of how silly it almost feels some of the stuff that we were doing, like, people were wiping down their groceries when
it's
they got
true.
home. People were
Mhm.
going one way in the grocery store. They had, certain slots for elderly people to go shopping at
Yeah,
alone in the
as if it
store,
made a
so
difference, and they had, like, the
right,
6 feet apart. It's like, well, I mean,
right.
if it's coughing particles can travel for what I don't
But we
understand.
were
We're
all
just
just like, "We have no idea, so let's just try anything." We were grasping
yeah.
at straws trying to figure out how to, keep people from getting sick, and a lot of it feels so silly now, but it was kinda
Mhm.
like that. We were just like, "We don't know what to do, so let's try this and
I
see if it
know.
works."
And before the vaccine, all those, like, remedies people were coming up
Mhm,
with, or
mhm.
UV stuff and just wild stuff people
Yeah.
were coming up with, like taking Lysol and, like,
And now
poisoning themselves.
I have a feeling if these things were happening to people back
Mhm.
then you would have had a lot more people participating in some of those, you know, things they were telling you to do
Oh, yeah.
because, if you imagine if you were having seizures or
Mhm.
hallucinating to the point where you thought your family was being eaten alive or something insane like that. I
Right.
mean, then you'd be like, "Okay, whatever you need me to do, I will absolutely do that," because
Oh, there was, like, some little shady person in town selling berries, like, "If eat
Oh,
these
for sure.
berries," or something random.
Some snake oil salesman,
Snake
yeah.
oil that's the word I was yes, like a snake
Yeah,
oil salesman just coming up with all sorts of stuff, and it was
for
just
sure.
like
Trying to capitalize on it, of
yeah, like
course.
sugar and water, and they're like, "Drink this, I'm telling you, it just knocks it all out." Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. But
Humans are
yeah,
great.
that was yeah, we are. Well, any chance to make a buck, someone will
Yep,
try
for
it.
sure, for sure.
Yes.
Well, that's so interesting. Yeah, I had not heard of that. So thank you so much for,
Yeah.
giving me a little history lesson there.
Yes, and thanks for joining me. Like I said, that one is mini. Sometimes they'll be longer, sometimes they might be shorter. We'll just it depends on what we're talking about that day.
Yeah,
But
what tickles our fancy?
yes. But thank you so much. And we will be back. Thanks, guys.
Alright. Bye.
Bye. For more information about us and all of the wines that we feature, visit our website at fearandwine.com. And make sure you follow Fear and Wine wherever you listen to podcasts so that you don't miss a new episode. And if you like us, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Thanks.